Welcome, preliminary ghosts, antemortem spirits, and preparatory haunts, to the I'm a Haunt podcast. This episode is called The Nature of My Game. I am your host, the Nothing Muse. On May 4th, 2024, the Earth released its gravitational hold, and an amazing spirit broke free. Before she took leave of this realm, though, Hannah Lynn Vadrines told her Aunt Laura, "I'm a haunt." Hannah is very special to me, and imagining her breaking free is my way of processing grief. Another part of my grieving process is throwing myself into creative projects. I've always been a writer and a storyteller. In the months after Hannah passed, I decorated a giant ceramic skull that she used to keep next to her front door. I gave it an eye patch, a headscarf, and a bejeweled gold tooth like a pirate. I commissioned a couple pieces of artwork, pictures of her, and pictures of some of her artwork. I created the icon used for this podcast, the little eye-patched ghostie. I orchestrated and managed a fundraising campaign in Hannah's memory. The one creative endeavor, though, that I threw myself into the most was this podcast. It combined my love of storytelling, my interest in ghost stories, and my desire to understand what makes a haunt. I cannot remember a time in my life when I was not fascinated by ghost stories and the idea of what might happen to us after we die. For most of my life, I was scared to death of death. It wasn't until I was much older and sat with my own father as he was dying that I lost my fear of death. I have always been open to the supernatural while keeping a foot firmly planted in the skeptical realm. As Fox Mulder is fond of saying on The X-Files, I want to believe. I've played with Ouija boards, consulted tarot decks, had my palms and tea leaves read, courted Marie Laveau and voodoo, explored witchcraft, studied Wicca, collected crystals, read up on the occult, and attended seances. I've had experiences I cannot explain, and I've had experiences where I was able to break them down to come to a reasonable understanding of what might have happened or caused the experience. Like I said, open, but skeptical. It is the intent of this podcast to not only discuss the haunt, but to try to understand and maybe even explain the haunt. These aren't ghost stories. We might discuss a well-documented haunted location, but the real goal is to discuss why this place in particular is haunted, or why these ghosts chose this place to haunt. For example, if a location says that multiple witnesses reported hearing the disembodied laughter of a small child, then I want to research if any children ever died on the property. Even if I am successful in determining that a child did in fact perish on the property, it doesn't mean that the disembodied laughter heard belongs to that child or ever even existed in the first place outside of a group hallucination. Then the discussion might become, why do people hear a child's laughter? Before I go any further, I want to state outright that it is not my intention to go trying to debunk any hauntings. For me, this journey is about exploring the stories surrounding a haunting and trying to understand what might lead to and or cause a haunting. What kinds of places are haunted? What kinds of people encounter ghosts? What makes a ghost? Why would someone want to haunt? Why isn't everyone a ghost after they die? What is the connection between a place and a haunt? Pretty much all of us have had some experience we cannot explain. Some have had what they consider to be visitations from deceased loved ones. My granny told me once that she woke up in the middle of the night to see her father sitting at the foot of her bed. She talked to him for a few minutes, and then he was gone. Then the phone rang in her home in Louisiana to tell her that her father had died in Mississippi. I don't doubt for a moment that she believes this happened, and maybe it truly did. There are other ways in which people believe they've been contacted by the deceased. Particular smells associated with the deceased, electronics acting up, things going missing then appearing in random places, discovering specific items in their everyday life that take on new meanings, and hearing certain songs, bands, or pieces of music are some ways, apart from seeing a ghost or spirit, people feel connected to loved ones from beyond the grave. My uncle, Mike, was my mom's younger brother. He spent many years living with us and was only a few years older than me. At one point, we even shared a room. He was more like a brother to me than an uncle, and I was devastated when he passed on my birthday when we were in our 20s. For weeks after he passed, I could smell him everywhere. It took me a little while to identify the smell following me, but it was definitely him. It was comforting to me to know he was still with me in a way. I told my mom about it, and she mentioned it when talking with Mike's other sisters. They all realized they had been smelling him around their houses as well and had not identified it. My Aunt Christy smells cigarette smoke in an upstairs bedroom of her home and considers that her mother, my Meemaw Wanda, visiting. When Mike passed, another occurrence his sisters experienced was electronics that acted up and items going missing then appearing in random places. The same Aunt Christy had a young son when Mike passed, and she told me about how her son's toys that had been stored in the basement would randomly start moving, making noises, or light up as though they'd been played with, but there was no one in the basement. My mom and her older sister Cheryl both had music CDs that would be missing from their CD shelves. The CDs were always from bands that Mike was a fan of, so they both assumed that was just Mike's way of being cheeky and messing with them, especially since the CDs would later turn up on a kitchen counter or in the bathroom. These were places where Mom and Cheryl would never have any reason to have a CD. My mom and two of her sisters, Cheryl and Vicky, consider finding dimes a sign from their father. At Hannah's funeral, her close friend Monique was sharing a story about Hannah turning out the lights and leaving Monique in the dark. As she told the story, the lights in the funeral home flickered. They didn't do it any time before or any time after. Only during that story about Hannah turning out the lights. Many of us took this as Hannah giving us a nod or trying to scare the crap out of us. Either way, it was very in keeping with her "I'm a haunt" statement before she passed. Of course, it could also be that the funeral home is old and has electrical issues. It could be that there was a mouse in the attic chewing the wiring at that exact moment. It could be a storm was brewing. It could be a lot of things. But in that moment, we chose to believe it was our Hannah, and it hurts no one to let us continue to believe that. I personally believe that randomly hearing the Rolling Stones is my dad saying hello to me. I'm from Louisiana, which is basically an entire state of haunts. It has a problematic history. There have been a number of different cultures that have been in power over it. There are different religions that hold sway over large pockets of its population. It has swamps, bayous, and trees dripping with Spanish moss. And it revels in taboos, temptations, and traditions. Every place has its own tall tales, urban legends, and ghost stories, but Louisiana swirls all those together in a big old monster gumbo. Growing up, you don't know the difference between the truth and the myth because there's a touch of each in every story you hear. My first introduction to this particular blend was my daddy using the phrases tatai, boogie tie, and rougarou. A tatai was, to my child's mind, simply a monster, any monster, until my daddy referred to a friend's Great Dane as a tatai. Then I took it to mean a big dog. A boogie tie was a tatai that came out at night, akin to the boogie monster. Boogie ties were under the bed and in the dark closets. A rougarou was a swamp werewolf creature. This was the hierarchy of child-eating monsters of Louisiana. Tatai, boogie tie, rougarou. At least it was in our house. The crossover use of these words by my daddy to reference other things in my daily life, dogs, big-ass spiders, giant Louisiana flying tree roaches, etc., blurred the lines between truth and myth and set the stage for my interest in all things haunt, spook, and ghost. As a born writer, my imagination has always been hyperactive. When most little girls were reading Black Beauty, I was reading Curses, Hexes, and Spells by Daniel Cohen. Seriously, I checked this book out so much in 4th grade, I am pretty sure I'm on some kind of government watch list somewhere. I didn't play beauty parlor or cooking show. I played witch's altar or hovered over my pretend cauldron. While my parents were not into any type of religion or the occult when I was a child, they were young and into hippie culture. Being an only child, I spent a lot of time around their friends, and they had some freaky friends. In the 70s, Saturday Night Live, Fleetwood Mac, Heart, and Black Sabbath were prevalent in our home, so it isn't hard to figure out where my fascination with the supernatural and witchcraft originated. While I appeared to be the only one in my family, on both sides, that leaned into the darkness, I was also the firstborn grandbaby, so my entire family took it in stride and never ostracized me for it. For a long time, my strongest memory from childhood was of my maternal great-grandmother, Susie Lee's funeral. Originally, I believed this to have occurred when I was only 18 months old, which was even remarkable to me that I would remember it in such detail. In my research for this episode, I learned I was, in reality, 4 years old at the time of her death. So I now believe that I conflated the death of my maternal great-grandfather, Edward, when I was 18 months old, and his wife's funeral when I was 4. Either way, I can describe in pretty good detail quite a bit of her funeral, and it wasn't like this was a recurring topic of discussion when I was growing up. It influenced my feelings on death and funerals, though, and so I didn't attend another funeral until I was in my 30s. I've had a recurring dreamlike feeling my whole life. I say dreamlike feeling because it isn't a dream. I am fully awake when I experience it, but it is otherworldly, and it will happen out of nowhere, completely disconnected from any present thought that I am having, and it will consume my entire being when it happens. It usually happens at night, when I am either trying to go to sleep or when I've woken up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep. My mind will wander, as it always does, and then suddenly I will feel my entire body rolling as though it is a storm cloud in the sky. My stomach will churn as I see the sky around me gray and tumbling, and I feel nauseated and sad all at once. This is what I assume death is, and I have had this recurrence since childhood. Death, to me, is becoming a cloud and rolling forever over a landscape I can no longer see or interact with. I have the feeling less, though, as I get older and encounter death more. I believe it to be the impetus for my fascination with death, hauntings, and ghosts. I loved hearing ghost stories as a kid, and I still enjoy reading supernatural stories. I even write them. I like scary movies and have a love for the history of places and buildings. If I visit a city and there is a haunted style tour, I am on it. I love cemeteries and like learning the history of them and the tombstones. And if you've already asked yourself, yes, I was goth and I still wear all black. In the upcoming episodes of I'm a Haunt, I plan to look at places and concepts that are personal to me first. I figure this is a great way to springboard into the larger questions I want us to explore together. There will be episodes where I am alone, like this one, and others where I will have a guest or guests. Throughout it all, though, the main focus will be on discussions about haunts, ghosts, hauntings, and what we think happens after we die. For me, this is a road I've journeyed on my whole life. I'd love it if you'd like to provide me with some company along the way. We'll do it with thoughtfulness, respect, humor, sass, and maybe even a hint of sadness. To all the ghosties tuned in out there, thank you for listening. And remember, if I know nothing else about what happens after this life, I do know this: I'm a haunt.